Hello everyone. What has happened to the horsepower of ISRO? PSLV is considered as the horsepower of ISRO. PSLV is the first major launch vehicle of ISRO, is the first launch vehicle that has a liquid state, launch vehicle that has given us 60 successful launches. And it's in history from 1993 till recently, there has been only 4 failures, just 4. 60 success and 4 failures. So the record is impeccable. But of these 4, 2 has happened lately. So until 2025, there was just 2 failures. And government of India has taken it very seriously, the last 2 failures. And people are asking, कि ये किसकी नजर लग गई? They have taken it very seriously. In fact, the National Security Advisor, he has visited the facility of ISRO, and on a prima facie investigation, it has been found that there is no external sabotage. There seems to be technical problem, and there seems to be a systemic problem that we will discuss a little bit. So first I'll present the news to you, and then we shall discuss the science and technology behind it. But in the beginning, before everything, I'll give you these questions. They are 12 statements. They are either true or false, and you must identify or the nature, whether they are true or false. Before the discussion, it will be worthwhile if you can try from the knowledge that you have gathered so far and see how well prepared you are. See how many of them you could answer comfortably. In the course of discussion, we shall touch on these points, and towards the end of the video, you shall be comfortable answering these statements. So what's the news? The news is that the last 2 launch, PSLV C62 and PSLV C61, has failed. And the failure in both the cases has been in the 3rd stage. PSLV has 4 stages: solid, liquid, solid, liquid. The first stage of any rocket is always solid. First stage is always solid because in the beginning, the highest amount of thrust is required. When the rocket is leaving the surface of the earth, highest amount of gravitational pull is there on the surface. And after 50 to 60 kilometers, the pull is very less. But in the beginning, the pull is highest, so the rocket needs more thrust. And more thrust comes when the engine burns faster. An engine burns faster when the fuel is having higher density. And highest density is in solid. So the first stage is always solid. Solid, liquid, and once the rocket comes out, it can face many turbulence. Maybe it hits a jet stream, maybe cyclonic condition, an air current that may disturb the trajectory from the planned trajectory. So correction is required, and for correction you have to have control of engine. And control is there. You can close the nozzle, you can increase the flow, you can decrease the flow, you can have a tap on the knob if it's a liquid fuel. So the second stage is having a liquid. This solid liquid is the state of the fuel. The first stage has solid fuel, and the second stage has liquid fuel. And then the third stage, to increase the velocity, to develop the orbital velocity before placement, again solid, again fast burning is required. So the third stage is solid, and for final placement, again control is required. So the fourth stage is liquid. So this third stage, in both the cases, the problem has been in the solid motor of the third stage. The recent failure is a major failure because there were 16 satellites. There was Earth observation satellite, Anvesha, and this was a strategic satellite. It was hyperspectral. Hyperspectral, there are many satellites that can study in many spectral ranges. They are multispectral. But in many thousands of spectral ranges, if a satellite can study, that is hyperspectral. So these are more advanced satellites, and we had a loss of this because of the failure of the launch. The satellite was also destroyed. But it's not only that. There were 16 satellites, including ours, and there were satellites from European Union and also Nepal and also France and many countries. There were 16 satellites. So it was a huge loss. Last time we had Earth observation satellite that has SAR, synthetic aperture radar. Synthetic aperture radar, I hope you're familiar with this term. I'll just take 2 minutes to tell you what SAR is. SAR is synthetic aperture, and synthetic means man-made. Aperture is the length, the area of the lens through which the light enters. That's aperture. And radar use radio frequency. Synthetic aperture, I'll tell you, and you might already know this, but let me explain you nevertheless. See, the satellite, this is the aperture, the antenna. It has to do the imaging. Then the lights from any point can come, and bigger the aperture, better will be the image, because the image can take into account the inclinations of various points, so the edges will be more fine, and that's how what we say that the resolution is more. If this antenna is of larger size, the image will be even better. But there's a limit to which we can make the size of the antenna larger and larger, because if it is too large, it will be heavy. It will be heavy, then difficult to launch. So, or also there's a limit to the mechanical strength. If you keep on making it large and large, it may break from the point, from the joint. So there is a physical limit to how much we can make it large. But synthetic aperture is not actually large in size. That satellite has a smaller aperture, and suppose it has to do imaging from a point from Earth, and it takes the rays. Then the satellite moves. When the satellite moves, it takes the image of the same point. The satellite moves, it takes the image of the same point. It moves further, it takes the image of the same point. And also from behind this reference point, it would have taken images. So it will take image from various points, and as though it has a huge aperture. It is not huge, but since it is taking at different instances, and then the overlapping of all the images will create a high resolution image. So SAR is not an easy technology, because when the satellite is at a different point, it will be taking the image of the previous point, but it will also take images of these points. So the time stamping has to be very strong for every image, and their assembly, and then high resolution image creation of a particular point. So it's ingenious. It appears as though the aperture is huge, but the aperture is not huge. This is an ingenious design. This is what synthetic aperture radar is. And the resolution of satellites having synthetic aperture radar is great, but not an easy technology to develop. So, but we lost it. We lost Earth observation satellite 09, and we also lost our hyperspectral satellite Anvesha. So this is the news. Now, concerning these things, the committee is expected to give the report by February, by March 3. So when the report comes, you'll find the findings, and hopefully nazar utar jayegi, and hopefully things will be fine in the next launch. We don't have to worry much, and they are taking care of it. What we have to worry is our conceptual understanding. And these are the things that I want to discuss with you. It is said that the chamber pressure dropped in one of the launch. Chamber pressure dropped, so if the pressure drops, then the combustion will not be fast. Combustion was not fast, so the pressure dropped. And the pressure dropped, matlab lower thrust. If there's lower thrust, then the satellite will not be able to achieve orbital velocity, and there will be failure in the launch. The loss of pressure in combustion chamber means reduced thrust, and then it cannot achieve orbital velocity. Orbital velocity is very high. From the Kepler's law, the velocity is decided by the orbital radius. And you know, the satellites are moving at crazy velocity, 7 meters per second, 8 meters per second. If the height is the orbital radius is less, and it's closer to the surface of the Earth, right around 400 kilometer, 420 kilometer, it can go to 9 meters per second. But that is some crazy velocity. And that crazy velocity has to be achieved before it is placed there. Otherwise, it will not stay in the orbit. So, engine has to create that velocity. And if that doesn't happen, then it will fail. The roll rate disturbance. In the last failure, it is suspected that there was a roll rate disturbance. It is unintended spin around the rocket's longitudinal axis. So that creates a asymmetric. This is caused by asymmetric thrust. There are multiple nozzles, and if there is no symmetry, then it will get tilt and then rotate and lose the balance. We don't have to get into these things. These are the internal committee's findings initially. The technical teams have found these things, but that is not much of our concern. From exam perspective, these things, these mechanical points, these are not related to science. These are related to engine design, engine stability, which traditionally we do not cover under the civil service preparation. But you have to know other things. Solid versus liquid propulsion. Solid propulsion is simple. It is simple because there is no flow of anything, there is no nozzle. It is simple, it creates very high thrust. That is why the first stage is solid. And third stage, where orbital velocity has to be created, this is very high, that's also solid. It is non-throttable, meaning you cannot have the nozzles, you cannot increase or decrease the flow like you do in the liquid fuel. Cannot shut down once it is lit. There is no control, there is no knob. If you close the gas in the cooking gas, it's a gas, so if you close it, the flow stops and the gas stops. Once a solid starts to burn, how do we control the combustion? Either we have CO2 all over it, or we've splashed water over it, but there is no internal control. There is no controlled control. You switch it off and then turn it on again, and switch it off again and turn it on again. It is not restartable. It is not throttable. It is simple. But the problem is that even though it is simple, but the PSLV launch vehicle's third stage, this is solid stage, and the problem is in this stage. So it is a small problem. That small problem has persisted and the correction was not done for the first time, it seems. So now they are calling it a systemic problem. So it has become a serious issue. FAC is Failure Analysis Committee. And FAC's report traditionally has been put in public domain. In the past, in 2017, there was a failure, and the FSC report was put in public domain then. But FSC's report has not been put in public domain this time around. It was given to PMO. So there has been a little institutional departure. There was a non-disclosure of the report, maybe because of the sensitivity of the report, and they were scrutinizing of an external attempt to sabotage, whatever the reason is. But this report has not been made public. So the experts around, they're not able to do the analysis properly outside of the government. NSIL is the body that is considered as the owner of the instruments, of the spaceports, of the technology. It is at the interface of the government and the industry. It does the hand-holding of the startups. It does the technology transfer to the startups, to the private sector. It's a kind of commercial arm of ISRO. InSpace is the regulatory body. The policy overall is made by InSpace. So InSpace is the regulatory body, NSIL is a commercial arm, and ISRO is the R&D, the body that does the core research. So these are the three tiers of governance in ISRO. SSO, these two Earth observation satellites, these two were going where? These two were going in an orbit called a Sun synchronous orbit. Sun synchronous orbit are low Earth orbit, but they are special low Earth orbit, which are polar orbits. When we have to observe the Earth, observation can be done from the equatorial orbit, observation can also be done from the polar orbit. But the polar orbits are preferred for observation because the satellite here goes pole to pole and the Earth rotates west to east. So the entire surface of the Earth is covered by the polar satellites. So the Earth observation satellite, as both of them were going for polar satellites. Polar satellites, low Earth orbits, polar orbits, low Earth orbits, and the specific polar orbit, which are low Earth orbits, are called as Sun synchronous orbit. And bulk of the Sun synchronous satellites, they are sent from 600 to 800 kilometers. This is the range for LEO. LEO is low Earth orbit, and within LEO could be equatorial, LEO could be polar. This polar LEO, this is Sun synchronous orbit. This is called as Sun synchronous orbit. Sun synchronous, as the name suggests, Sun synchronous means that the satellite would pass the same spot on the Earth at same local time. So if the satellite has to cross Delhi, suppose today it crossed at 4 p.m., next time ever again, when the satellite crosses Delhi, it will cross again at 4 p.m. So the satellite passes same spot at same local time. That is what is Sun synchronous. And it helps a lot because observing something at the same level of insolation, That is helpful because the surface will be emitting something else in the morning with different intensity than in the afternoon, than in the evening, than at the night. So if you're observing the same surface in the morning, you're observing the same surface in the afternoon, surface will be giving you emission at different intensity. So you have to calibrate your instrument to see at what time you're observing a surface, a piece of earth. So the calibration becomes easy if the observation is done at the same time of the day. That is why the Earth observation satellites are sent in sun synchronous orbit. SAR, I've explained to you, synthetic aperture radar. SAR increases the resolution. And hyperspectral, there is something called as multispectral. If in 3, 4, 5, 6 ranges a satellite study, then that is called as multispectral. What will decide in how many ranges? That is the instrumentation. There will be different instrumentation on the same satellite that will be detecting it in different ranges. So in the back end, there'll be different processes. In the back end, there'll be different sensors. So if you want thousands of ranges, then you're going to have thousands of ranges of sensors and the processors at the back end. The sophistication will be more. And then the data analysis, that will become even more complex. So hyperspectral imaging is, they will be done in ultraviolet as well. They will be done in infrared as well, invisible as well, in X-rays as well, and different ranges within X-rays, different ranges within ultraviolet. Now, why hyperspectral imaging? See, everything emits in different ranges. Like the body of humans emit in a particular range, a body of different animal will also be in infrared range, but in a different range. That is called as the fingerprint of emission. So every body, a piece of concrete will be emitting in a particular range, a lake of water will be emitting in a particular range, a coal mine, a copper mine, aluminum mine, iron mine, everything in a different range. If you change the chemical, the emission will be in different ranges. And that also depends on temperature. So if you're hyperspectral, you can see variety of objects at different temperature. You can also study different stars at different temperature. So the amount of study that you can do is going to be enormous if it is hyperspectral. All right, now let's come to the questions. PSLV is 4-stage launch vehicle with alternative solid and liquid propulsion stages. It's true. And you understand the purpose, why first is solid, then why second is liquid, then why third is solid, and why fourth is liquid. You have to require control. So liquid stages, after getting out of the Earth's atmosphere, deviation would happen in the atmosphere, then again liquid, then increased velocity, orbital velocity, then again solid, then proper placement in the orbit, accuracy, again you require control, again liquid. That's why it is designed like this. PSLV was the first Indian rocket to use liquid propulsion stage. We had a launch vehicle before that, purely solid, but this is correct. PSLV was the first one that will have that has liquid stage. We have more advanced launch vehicles, GSLV Mark III, which is now called as Launch Vehicle Mark III, LVM. The third stage uses cryogenic propulsion system, which is false. We have seen it's 4 stages: solid, liquid, cryogenic. That is in GSLV, not in PSLV. In-Space act as the regulatory and promotional body for private space activities. Yes, it is regulatory and promotional body. This is true. NSIL is responsible for commercial exploitation and technology transfer. Commercial, yes, they find new markets and they get into agreements for the launch of satellites. They also do technology transfer. This is correct. For example, PSLV manufacturing, 50% of technology transfer ISRO has done, and HAL and L&T together will be creating parts of PSLV. So all of that is seen by NSIL. The Space Activities Bill has been enacted to provide statutory powers to InSpace. You have to keep a watch on this. This is still pending. The bill has not been enacted yet. So of course, InSpace doesn't have the statutory power. It is a regulatory body, and regulatory bodies should have statutory power. So one of the provision of the bill is to give statutory power to InSpace. No doubt about that, but has not been enacted yet. So that will make the statement false. A drop in combustion chamber pressure in a solid motor reduces thrust and can prevent orbital velocity. Orbital velocity is very high. So if a drop in combustion chamber happens, that means orbital velocity will not be reached. So there will be a failure in the launch, in the placement of satellite. This is a true statement. The failures have led to cancellation of Gaganyaan. Oh, no, 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 no. This is not a huge issue and nobody is panicking. In fact, the launches of PSLV in 2026 is lined up, and it will be launching the satellites of France and US as well. And they are not panicking. They're not saying that, no, sir, please, sorry, we do not want it anymore. They're not panicking. So no mission will be cancelled because of this. An absolutely absurd statement. ISRO is transferring approximately 50% of PSLV production to HL L&T consortium. It's a fact. I've told you. This is a true statement. In fact, PSLV's technology, in fact, ISRO is doing hand-holding of the private sector a lot. A lot of technology will be given so that these activities that ISRO got into earlier can free itself from and can get into more advanced space activities, deep exploration, and Mars mission, and having a rover. Right now we have orbiter on Mars, having a rover on the Mars. We are having a planned Venus mission, working on dark energy. There are other things for ISRO. These regular things should be taken up by private sector now. This transfer is necessary. Synthetic aperture radar imaging works only during daytime and in clear weather. Synthetic aperture radar uses radar, which uses radio wave. And radio wave, for radio wave, the atmosphere is transparent. So it works in cloudy weather as well. It doesn't require clear weather. It has nothing to do with daytime or nighttime. It doesn't uses the visible ranges. Day and night, that is decided by whether the visible light is there or not. Radio wave has nothing to do with these things. It is all weather, all day, all night satellite. This is false. Hyperspectral imaging captures hundreds of narrow spectral bands for material identification. Yes. If you have few 5, 6, 7, 8, that is multispectral, hundreds of narrow spectral bands to identify variety of materials. This is true because different materials emits in different ranges. So for variety of materials, you have to have variety of ranges. Insurance premium for future PSLV launches are likely to increase, reducing cost Yes, because of the failure, some amount of premium for the insurance that is likely to increase. General statement and correct statement. This does not mean the situation is panicky. It does not mean कि बुरी तरीके से नजर लग चुकी है. It does not mean that we have to be very concerned and very depressed, having a very pessimist view. PSLV has given 60 successful launch, and 4 failures would not stand against the record of 6 success. So none of the countries outside have shown any concerns. So it is not a matter to panic. It's just a matter that we look into it, check it, and fix it. Thank you very much. Please write in the comment section how many of these you got correct. And this exercise we shall do every day. Keep in touch. See you next time.